Natalie Holt, composer for Loki, is one of my favorite scores in the MCU. I know Kate Herron, the director, brought you on board. So what were your first discussions like when you guys talked about the show?
Oh, yeah, Kate and I just really bonded on like we have quite similar taste in films and music that we liked. And yeah, she just had lots of kind of retro B-movie references, like sci-fi movies, things with theremin. She'd been listening to lots of Clara Rockmore. And so she had quite a specific sound that she wanted to go for. And I'd weirdly been listening to lots of Delia Derbyshire and BBC Radiophonics Workshop music as well. So we just luckily seemed to align on what we were kind of thinking about for the tone palette for the score. And we just really hit it off in that kind of early meeting. And then I think the demo that I wrote, because I had to do a pitch to win the job. And the demo had like theremin, my friend Charlie Draper played, and the theme that I ended up using for the Loki theme in that demo that I did as a pitch. So I think yeah, I just hit what she wanted, and yeah, I was lucky enough to get the job from that pitch.
What were you like immediately inspired by from that discussion? Was it like the theremin or like any particular themes of the show itself?
Well, I think because you don't often, well, I haven't anyway, had the experience of working on a show that's already kind of fleshed out. You know the character, who the actor is, you can see them already. So I was quite inspired just by Loki, by the character of Loki, and the Marvel movies that I'd watched. And so there was just a lot to grab hold of. And then obviously reading the script and seeing what Loki gets to do, you could just really visualize it because you already have all that kind of narrative information from all the movies. So I felt like I was a bit ahead of where you usually are on a project where you're just starting with a script and you don't know who anyone is and it's a bit more of a blank canvas. So I think that was kind of an inspiring jumping off point.
Mm-hmm. What is it like, obviously you're familiar with Loki, the character from these previous movies, and he has his own themes from those movies, but now this is a whole new world. There's time travel, he could go wherever. And like there's themes of him like searching for his identity and like who he is and the sense of self, and you get to basically create a new theme for him, and there's all these other elements to it with like the TVA and all that stuff. It's like kind of mysterious. So was it like writing a new theme for an old character in this way?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that it was kind of like writing a new theme for an old character that already exists. But I don't think Loki had a theme, or not like a real recognizable theme before I came on board. So it was kind of nice to have that like not already covered, I guess. And I guess obviously there's sort of a legacy of music that's been used in Marvel, and I was quite inspired by the Mark Mothersbaugh scores for the Thor. So I tried not to listen to too much, so that because I knew I wanted to sort of have a new take on it. So yeah, sort of just slightly disregarded what was done before.
So what was in the suite that you wrote, and how much of those made the final cut?
So yeah, the suite that I wrote kind of had all the character themes. Pretty much all of it ended up going in to the finished show. It was so cool because sometimes you write a suite and then you watch the first cut and you realize that you're off. Like you need to have another go because from the script to what's been shot is so different. But luckily that suite that I did for Loki just seemed to really easily work its way into the narrative of the whole project. So yeah, it pretty much all of it's used. So that was cool.
Was there one that you maybe had to adapt the most or the least?
So the thing that the Loki theme, the TVA theme that ended up being used on the kind of David Cronenberg style opening titles, that was something that that was like a sketch that I came up with and sent to Kate, and I'd mixed it really roughly, like I never intended it to be the finished thing. And I re-recorded it with the orchestra and mixed it with the engineer and everything, and then just compared the two, and I just preferred the thing that the original. Maybe it's because I heard it more, and it was kind of a bit more raw, I suppose. And so yeah, weirdly it was like I tried to improve on it and ended up going back to the demo and then just using the demo for the opening titles.
Sometimes that happens, right? You just do too much work and it's like, oh, it was originally fine as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, overwork something. Yeah, it's weird how that can happen.
Yeah. I love the TVA theme. Like it's so haunting in a way, but also very earwormy and like addictive. And I love the little like bell melody. It sounds like a clock almost.
Yeah.
Like, how did you incorporate, the clock ticking, those elements into the score?
So yeah, obviously the whole thing is the TVA is a time police, basically, like moving along a timeline. So yeah, I wanted to have that kind of clock ticking, but it is overused in scores. Like it's kind of a trope. Like you do often see that, like there's a bomb going off, tick, 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 tick. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like it can be get a bit hackneyed to hear that clock ticking in a score. So I wanted to do something a bit different with it. So I kind of ran it through an old tape machine and like had it kind of spinning around and sounding a bit more gnarly than just a straight up tick. And it kind of helped with that sort of slightly trippy quality, which because I did lots of speeding up and slowing down of the recording on a tape machine, which sort of helped, and it gave it a sort of slightly faded, less polished quality to the end sound as well. So yeah,
I do like that quality about the show and the music, because a lot of the show is very analog and like old school tech, and you hear that in like the score as well. So how much of the score did you have to do that kind of like processing and to
well I think also because we used I just love working with live musicians as much as possible. So like even on the demo, I got this theremin player, Charlie Draper, who to play the real theremin. So it's like the kind of, it's warts and all sound was just really part of the sound of the show. Like I think it would have been a really different score if I used like a synth sound for the theremin, because it's got the, you play this instrument with your hand, and it's kind of a pole, these two poles, and you're kind of moving the air to play this I don't know, electric current. I'm being really like giving a crude workings of how a theremin works, but for sure, like the live sound of the theremin added so much color and texture to the score. Yeah. So and then I've worked with these Norwegian folk instrumentalists as well, and so all of those things, they're just, you can't get those kind of sounds with samples. I can't, because I'm not very, I just haven't got the patience.
I read that the TVA theme was originally supposed to be Kang's theme.
Yeah, it is Kang's theme. It basically, so I realized that, like, I came up with the Kang theme quite early on, and he's in charge of the TVA the whole time. So it seemed to make sense that this whole thing that you're hearing that you think is the TVA theme is actually belongs to Kang. So that was a bit of like preceding thematic idea.
It's foreshadowing there, but but at the end, when Loki sees the statue at the TVA, it's like a more aggressive version of
with a court choir singing it.
Yeah, and it's like more sinister. So
yeah.
What was it like writing for the individual themes, like Mobius's theme? How did you approach that?
Yeah, Mobius, I just saw him as a slightly kind of lolloping cop, and I don't know why, like, and because he sort of loves the jet skis, he's got this obsession with the 90s, and I don't know why, I was just like imagining what kind of music he'd be listening to, and it was a bit like Bon Jovi or something. And then I just kind of came up with that guitar theme for him, and it seemed to stick. So yeah.
He would. I hope he gets his jet ski in season 2.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
I also really like Sophie's theme, because obviously she's a variant of Loki, but she has a lot more anger in her.
Mhm.
Like, you know, she's out for revenge, and obviously what she does in the finale. So what was your approach to writing her theme?
Well, that was kind of a weird one, because I wrote I kind of started writing episode 1, and I did this theme for Loki's mother when he watches her being killed. And I'd used those Norwegian folk instruments, and I was like, oh, hold on a minute, that sort of connects with Loki's heritage, you know, because he's a Norse god, and that kind of Scandinavian folk music seemed to be appropriate for telling his kind of family story and his more emotional side. And I'm not saying like he's got some incestuous relationship with, I don't know what Sophie is really like. Is she his sister or a lover or whatever? It's kind of that Narcissus story, isn't it? Like he's falling in love with a reflection of himself slightly. But so anyway, for me, like connecting the mother theme with her seemed to work, and that sound, that kind of slightly angsty kind of what's the word, that kind of haunting quality that those folk instruments have, just seemed to work really well for her kind of anger and pain. So yeah.
Yeah, you really feel her pain, and it correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in the last 2 episodes, I guess, when they're fighting in the chambers, and then also when they kiss, if it sounds like their themes like come together. It's like a remix.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah. And then I wrote kind of like quite a schmaltzy love theme for them as well, which didn't get it. It was kind of, because what is it? Are they really in love? Like, what is that relationship anyway? We don't know. So it felt kind of fun to play around with a more kind of old-fashioned Hollywood romance theme, but it was a bit kind of tongue in cheek in a way when it was used. I think it was, yeah, and it sort of changed and shifted because their relationship evolved to, you know, we don't know how they really feel about each other at the end of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also the way it was shot as well. I feel like when they kiss, and it feels very like sweeping, and it's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like, and then she's like, no, I still want to.
It's always those rug pulls like all the way through the show. I loved it. Like it was so clever.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps you on your toes the whole time.
Yeah. For Renslayer, is her theme like organ based?
Yes. Yeah, that was kind of like a synth organ actually, that was still kind of had it's not just a straight up organ sound. It's sort of something a bit rattly and but there was this really tender moment between her and Mobius where their two themes kind of come together just before, you know, when they have a kind of fight and then she leaves, but you feel like they have a real soft spot for each other as well. So there was a bit of connecting their two themes.
Yeah, they're also like, they're sort of like a TVA version of Loki and Sophie.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One part I love in the finale is when He Who Remains is doing his whole speech, and there's one point when he like sits back and like sings songs like Amen.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, like the music like syncs up to it. So what happened there? How did you write that? And was that like a choir like backing?
Yeah, it was a choir. Yeah, I got to work with a choir there. I just loved writing that last episode. I was so sad to stop because I felt so in the flow and in the story at that point, and that episode just flew out really fast. And I was like watching that scene, and it was dry, like his kind of backstory and the way he was acting it, and Jonathan Majors did such a fab job. But there felt something kind of operatic about it. And then I was like, oh, it's like a requiem, because he knows that his timeline's about to stop, and he probably knows he's about to be killed. So I was like, this feels like his Requiem almost, and he's like going through his life. And shall I try and like underscore it like with that in mind? And they were like, yeah. They hadn't temped any music in that scene, and then he'd gone, oh man, in his performance. So I just used that as a little moment and then built this whole thing around it. But it was so fun. I really enjoyed doing that.
How helpful is it when you get to watch like dailies of like the actors and seeing their choices, and then you get to make decisions based on that?
It's so useful. I loved it. Like Kate was shooting that episode 6 because of COVID, we had like a gap, and then she just was like saying, oh, I want to send you these dailies because I think that it's going to help you write his theme if you see how he's doing it. And she was obviously really inspired by his performance as well. So yeah, that was cool. I got to watch the dailies like as they were shooting with episode 6.
Fans really love your score. So what has it been like seeing the fan reaction to it? And like a lot of people are doing their own versions of themes as well. So.
Yeah, that was bonkers. Like that Samuel Kim guy, I think he's got more hits on his version of my theme than my actual theme has.
It's always like that, right?
Yeah. But it's so crazy how quick, like I was like, unless he's been leaked a copy of but it was like the show came out and then about 24 hours later these people have done these amazing takes and versions of the music. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm flattered by it. It's it's kind of amazing that my music's gone into people's brain and they wanted to bother to do a version of it. It's super cool.
Yeah. Are you returning for season 2?
I don't I'm not sure if I can say.
Well, I hope you are.
I hope I am too. Yeah.
Okay. I want that jet ski theme. That's all. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jet ski. Yeah.
Well, Natalie, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. Oh, you too. Great to meet you.